Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Spiritual Connection for May. I'm very pleased and honored to present to you my friend Brian Becker, whom I know because he is the chair of the campaign cabinet for a client of mine called Walther Christian Academy. And under his leadership, they are really excelling, and their campaign is quite a success to date. A little bit about Brian. For the last 20 some years, he has been an executive coach. He is really keen on building effective boards and strategic planning. He's a published author, and I'm pleased to tell you that his most recent book is called Igniting the Power Keg, 7 Keys for Nonprofit Board Engagement. And he is offering for free, anyone who wants it today on our Spiritual Connection, a chapter called Generosity, Where Gladness Meets Hunger. And so you'll let Brian know, and he will send that chapter to you for free. Brian, I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to you. Brian's going to be talking to us about Going Fast Slowly, a reflection on the spirituality of fundraising by Henry Nouwen. Brian?
All right. Thanks, Leslie. I appreciate the kind words. And I tell people when they want to know about me, I say, well, I'm a friend of Leslie's. And so if she likes me, I must be okay. So we actually met at a fundraising conference maybe 3 years ago or something like that. And
Yes.
just had breakfast one day and really struck up a friendship, and very aligned around how faith plays such an important role in stewardship and fundraising. And so we've stayed in touch since then and tried to work together a couple of times and haven't quite got that to work.
We'll
So
get that
anyhow,
soon.
yeah. And became familiar with TNPA about 4 years ago. I'm friends with Denny and Bonnie Meyer, who've been board members, and I was a client of theirs. I've been where you are. I've had my own donor portfolio. I've managed campaigns. I've been a senior director of advancement at university, and was at a foundation for over a decade where I was the grant maker, which was really exciting, different type of work. And now the last, long time, almost 20 years, I've been self-employed, consulting, writing, speaking, coaching, etc. So, and the fundraising and board development has and planning with boards has just been rising and rising in my portfolio, not by strategy, but by magnetism, I guess, and really working a lot with Catholic organizations, Lutheran organizations, and loving that work. So a number of years ago, many years ago, I discovered Henry Nouwen and Frederick Buechner and some other author pastors that just I really felt aligned with. And then ran into this little book, and some of you are familiar with this. But by the way, I'm in the back seat of my car. I'm traveling today, so I'm really high tech. So here's my presentation. You may be familiar with this little booklet, "Spirituality of Fundraising" by Henry Nouwen. Ran into that. It's like 60 pages or something, but it just so put words to things I'd been thinking about for a while. Some of you are nodding. You've read it as well. Really powerful, perspective changing, and the use of scripture in a way around money and around fundraising that I'd never thought about. Some of those verses being so applicable around God's gifts to us. And how we use them. So if you haven't found your way to this, I highly recommend that. So the phrase "going fast slowly" is another one of those things which is a little odd. And I was looking for, this was probably half a dozen years ago, I was looking for some graphics to go along with a presentation, and I ran into this. Here's my next slide. So you can see that it's a rabbit coming out of a snail's shell. And it's and the two little Latin words there, festina lente, really juxtaposed, literally make haste slowly. And that started me thinking about the busyness of my day, always more people to call on than I could call on, always more to do, calls to make, people to manage, letters to write, et cetera, et cetera. And some of you are nodding like what that's like to be in that space. So before I go any further, um, thank you for being here. I'm sure that no one in your life said, "Hey, slow down for a half an hour. Just go to this session and don't do work, or don't pick up the kids from school or go to the store or send that other whatever." So just take 30 minutes to invest in yourself. So thank you for doing that. And while we're in this soft and calm space, let's just go another step deeper than that. And let's just be aware of that you breathe in through your nose and out. And let's do that about 5 times together, okay? Some of you are doing emails while I'm saying this. I know, I can tell. So, but let's all just take a breath in and out and in and out. And continue to do that. And if you feel like tension in your neck or shoulders or your hands, let it go away from you as you exhale. Just a few more times. And even as you do that, your body begins to have physical changes because of the way that you are taking care of yourself. And know that those little physical changes during the day can help you get clarity and get centered and knock away the chaos of the day. So you've all been on too many Zoom meetings probably, and you know where the chat box is. If you have a favorite Bible verse or parable that helps you get centered or slow down or remind you that you are imago Dei, made in the image and likeness of God, in the midst of all the the chaos. Enter, even if you don't know the words perfectly, enter what you know of it in the chat. Would you just take a minute to do it? You don't have to, but if there's something that comes to mind, or if you don't know the verse, just enter the story. So like whatever it is. My sheep hear my voice, and you know they know me. We're going to use these a little later in our time together. The By the way, I've been doing some sort of consulting fundraising since the early 90s. So I've been doing this a long time. I know I don't look that old, but I'm old. So my wife's harping on me why I'm not retiring, but I love what I'm doing and I'm having fun and I'm not working as hard as I used to, but this is such important work, and it's so much fun and meaningful. I don't want to let that go. And when I keep that perspective in front of me, that helps me go fast, slowly. And when I saw the spirituality of fundraising years ago, that for some reason I had this thought that the impact that I have has a lot more to do with the things I say no to than the things I say yes to. The things I say no to than the things I say yes to. Because I can say yes to things all day long and fill my calendar from early morning till late at night, including the weekends, all of it being something that's probably, connected to work or something of meaning. Yet I can finish the day and go, well, I did 16 things, but did any of it really like hit the target or did any of it have an impact? So how do I slow down enough so I can think about what should be rising to the surface in terms of the highest priorities, where I can actually do less, do them more deeply, let them have greater impact rather than, I remember as a senior director at a university, I just felt like I was skimming the surface all of the time. And if you're in that position, you know what that's like. And so I don't need to go into detail on that. I want to, Leslie mentioned that I have 2 books out. One of them actually has been out one day. so so this is Igniting the Powder Keg. 7 Keys for Nonprofit Board Engagement. Literally yesterday, it was published. The ebook's been out for like a month or something like that. But the book is not. If you want to buy the book, you're certainly welcome to. If you do, let me know and I'll give you a discount code. Okay. And so, also, Leslie, you mentioned um, the or maybe Vanessa mentioned it. Oh, you mentioned it, Leslie, that the free PDF of the chapter around generosity from the book. You could email me at contactbrianbecker@gmail.com. Contactbrianbecker@gmail.com. Just send me a 1 sentence email. Hey, I was on the thing at TNPA, and I'll send you the PDF of that in the next day or so.
Great. Hey, Brian, there are a couple of Bible passages. Do you want me to read those to you?
Let's save them, and we'll use that as part of our wrap up. Okay.
Okay, sounds
Yeah.
good.
Thanks, Leslie. Thank you. So the book isn't theory. It doesn't read like a textbook. It reads more like if you've ever read like a Patrick Lencioni book. It's a fable. It's a story between a senior, longtime successful CEO of a senior housing nonprofit who had just retired, and that person runs into a brand new CEO who had been a program manager for this youth organization in an urban area, but she'd never worked with a board, never done fundraising, never had to plan a meeting with a bunch of influential people, didn't understand about setting culture and all of those things and running effective meetings. So the book is a conversation, about 12 conversations they have over a period of time about what's this about and how do I get engaged and how do I draw my board in so they don't sit there and just listen to reports, et cetera, et cetera. One of their very last conversations, um, here's the 7 steps, by the way, or the 7 keys around governing and generating and getting and going and giving and getting off, which is how do you get people off the board when they're shouldn't be there or their term is up or whatever. But you notice that the generosity isn't one of the pieces of the pie. That they discover in their very late conversations that the generosity piece, it's the foundation. It's the bedrock. And when that happens, all those other things happen more effectively with greater impact. So they're having this conversation. I just want to read you 1 page of the conversation between Bo is the man's name and Carla is the woman's name. So Bo says, in The Spirituality of Fundraising, Henry Nouwen wrote that fundraising is a quote, a way of proclaiming what one believes in, unquote. When you invite someone to serve on Casa Vida's board of directors, that's Carla's organization, or you could fill in the name of your organization there, you're not just asking them for money. You're inviting them to prioritize your mission in their lives and to invest in their creativity, energy, and resources in causes that matter. Never think of this as a burden, but rather an invitation to share their love and participate in an important mission. That's rare, that's needed, and that's powerful. That's rare, that's needed, and that's powerful. And during the course of their conversations, whenever they run into something that's they think is like really has some sizzle to it, they grab a notebook and they start to write. They write things on a napkin or they write things in a journal. So anyhow, they write. She writes this little triangle that says rare and needed and powerful, and in the middle of it, she writes like this little explosion, and then she writes the word dynamis, which I'm like, what's that? So and she explains it in a little bit. So then Bo continues. Nouwen reframes fundraising as a spiritual act, not a necessary evil. It embodies an abundance mindset. We don't have to ask people for money. We get to invite them into something of great value. And from my perspective, he says that makes it sacred. Then Carla says, it seems that some people's identity is so bound to their money that they fear losing it. Oh, I added a word to our 3, dynamis. She said, that's about how do we ignite untapped potential. The word dynamite comes from dynamis. The word dynamic comes from dynamis. And Bo nodded and he said, that's really nice. He said, Nowen wrote, once we have learned to love people for who they are rather than what they have, we get to ask them, invite them into something that we believe in, and then we have no trouble asking for large sums of money. If our identity is wrapped up in wealth, fundraising feels distasteful. By the way, you may have been on the call early. Now, and actually earlier in his career, when he started to have to do fundraising, he thought fundraising was distasteful, and then he had this change of belief and change of attitude about this over time. He says, it's not because it is distasteful, it's because our relationship with money is unhealthy. It's rooted in fear or needed for validation. In contrast, if our identity is grounded in values and beliefs, then money simply becomes the fuel, the means to an end, and allows us to confidently invite people in to join our mission. Thus ends the lesson. So, and that's a little snippet of the generosity chapter. And the title of the chapter, by the way, Where Gladness Meets Hunger, that's from a quote by Frederick Buechner, where he writes, the place God calls you to is the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. The place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. And I'm guessing if we had an hour for a conversation, which we don't have that luxury this morning, you could all tell a story about when you realized that being involved in this generosity work, it like touched you at some deep level. Like I can remember back in the 25 years ago, I remember like came back from like a week on the road to my boss. I had not done that before. I'm like, I love talking to old people. I could listen to these people, old farmers, and I could listen to them tell their stories all day long because it's all about faith and values. And so anyhow, I just realized that there was something kind of weird about me wired that way. So anyhow, I've been talking for 10 minutes. What what comes to the surface for you? If just take yourself off mute and tell us what's coming to the surface for you. Let's take a few minutes just to share. Hey, by the way, Vanessa or Leslie, what time is it? I can't see my clock on my phone when I'm on Zoom.
It's about 9:50, Brian. So we've got maybe 5, 7 minutes
Oh,
left
okay.
for reflection, and then we'll
Okay.
wrap it up.
Very good. Thank you. Yeah. So anyone, we don't have to listen to everyone, but if you have something that's coming to the surface, let us know, please. Now it's your turn.
Good
Well,
morning. This is Rachel.
Yes, Rachel.
Hi. Thank you for your words this morning and reminder because I know that we can get caught up in goals and numbers and doing all these things that we have to do in order to accomplish the missions. But I remember Sister Georgette always saying this, and the more that I was involved directly with donors, it really is true that you have the organization's goal,
Mhm.
their mission, but it really
Mhm.
is a mission on this side as well for fundraising, because the more that you do it and you talk to donors and you realize that we are helping facilitate their
Mhm.
their goals of life, their
Mhm.
legacy, what they want
Mhm.
to leave behind, and what they feel inside is the right thing with God talking to them.
Yeah.
And so we're, really that conduit that's helping them fulfill their own personal mission as
Yeah.
well. And
Yeah.
so when you see it, and if you've done your work well, and like you said, you're aligned perfectly with the mission of the organization and the individual's personal mission,
Mhm.
it's so easy. It's
Yeah.
not asking for money.
Okay.
They're just thankful that you provided the opportunity for them
Great. Okay.
to
I'm gonna
fulfill their
I'm gonna
personal mission.
just I write with you, but I also want to watch the clock. So thank you,
Yep.
Rachel. I don't mean to be
Hmm.
rude. Somebody
Nope.
else, someone else. What's on your mind?
I think, Brian, you mentioned, and Rachel, these conversations with donors, just getting to know our donors is one of the most gratifying pieces, I think, of
Mm,
my work. And I know for many of you as well. And, you know, the reminder that Brian gives us to slow down.
mhm,
And when you slow down, you really begin to hear and to understand. It's really valuable advice. And I know it's
mm,
hard for us in development because we are pressed for results, and we sometimes have leadership that doesn't understand that this takes time,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Especially when we're dealing with the higher end donors and we're trying not to be transactional.
Mm,
So my heart always goes out to the development people that I work with because I understand deeply
yeah.
that conundrum. But
Yeah.
just the advice to slow down is
Mhm,
really
mhm.
wise advice.
Yeah, and that both what you said and Rachel said that feels so relational, not transactional.
Yes.
So yeah. Anyone else? I think we have time for another.
I
Okay,
think that
go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Yes,
I was going to
please.
say is that all sounds wonderful, and working directly with donors and like major gift officers and whatnot. But,
Mhm.
if you're just managing a vast direct mail program, how do you speak to everybody with the same voice and
Mm,
also try to get that or communicate that across to them and how important, without sounding rote or transactional, like you're important to our mission, but and also but having that meaning really come through on a piece of paper.
mhm, mhm. Yeah,
And that's a challenge.
it is a challenge. Yeah, to tell the one story that becomes universal. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Leslie, would you be my helper and read
Yes.
the verses or the parables that the people who did this
Sure.
in the
We
chat?
have four, and the first one is I called you by name, you are mine.
Hmm.
And the next is be still and know that I am God.
Hmm.
And the next is pray without ceasing. And then finally, and now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love.
Terrific, terrific, all great. But when you said the one pray without ceasing, my mind, I went to parochial school, and so we had memory lessons every morning, and that was always my favorite one because it was the shortest and I could remember it. So, or Jesus wept was actually the shortest one. So, but could remember that one as well. Well, I'm so thankful that you took time to be here this morning, and Leslie for asking me to facilitate this. I'd be happy to have a longer conversation with any of you. If you would like to, feel free to again to email me, contact brianbecker@gmail.com. The verse that came to my mind was one that my my grandpa Becker um, said. He was a very simple, very humble farmer in Southern Illinois. And every single time we sat for a meal with him, we prayed from Psalm 145, which is, and this is in King James because that's what's in my head. So it's a little different. The eyes of all wait upon thee, and thou givest them their meat in due season. Thou openest thine hand and satisfy the desire of every living thing. And I think about him as always having an open hand. I mean, in his entire life, he probably never made more than $20,000 a year. But he had an open hand to his family, his kids, his neighborhood, volunteering, being at church, and how we can live with that spirit of generosity when our hand is open versus when our hand is closed. So I'll leave you with a prayer. Um, about a dozen years ago, I joined the board of, I'm a Lutheran, joined the board of Lutheran Summer Music, which is a fantastic high school music academy. And I didn't ask any questions before I joined the board. I just had a couple of friends who asked me. So I said, sure, this sounds like fun. It'll be great. And I got there and the organization was in a steep decline. Uh, Leadership, fundraising, enrollment, quality. And it is doing great now. But at the time, we had tremendous challenges. And a board member closed our meeting with this prayer: Lord God, you have called your servants to ventures of which we cannot see the ending. By paths as yet untrodden, through perils unknown, give us faith to go out with courage, not knowing where we go, but only that your hand is leading us and your love supporting us. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.